It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at 5 movies released on the weekend of September 23rd, 2005. This week we have Jodie Foster in the second of 2 airplane movies released within the span of a month. Needless to say, Red Eye's the better one, but this one was the more financially successful one of the two. But we also have, I can't remember now, a period piece that takes place in the 70s, a criminally underrated period piece that takes place in the 70s, a coming-of-age story with Bow Wow in it. We also have David Cronenberg, one of his best movies in general, with Viggo Mortensen, Maria Bello, and Ed Harris. We'll take a look at that one. We'll also take a look at Jenny McCarthy in a new comedy. I wouldn't be in 2005. I don't think I would be saying that as a significant success in any way, shape, or form, and it really isn't. But we also have Johnny Knoxville in kind of an underrated little film that maybe it's a little bit better than I had it put on to be. But we'll get to that one a little bit later on in the show. But of course, we got to talk about the biggest new release of the weekend, which is, of course, Jodie Foster in the psychological thriller Flight Plan. You have Jodie Foster in this, starring as a recently widowed American aircraft engineer living in Berlin who flies back to the U.S. with her daughter and her husband's body. She loses her daughter during the flight and must struggle to find her while proving her sanity at the same time. And sounds like an intriguing premise overall. I mean, this sounds like a movie that could work. Jodie Foster doesn't usually pick bad movies in general, and even when she does, she's usually not the worst thing about it. But if I had to pick one of Jodie Foster's worst movies, this one's probably it right here, because, man, this movie is so generic, so bland, and you can easily predict what's going to happen as soon as you see specific characters that come into play here. Yeah, this is a bad movie. This is a really, really bad movie, a really lazy movie that doesn't take the promise that it has with that plot and the mystery aspect of it. It does absolutely nothing with it in general. It just gives you a schlocky, been there, done that psychological thriller with a stupid twist ending that really makes no sense whatsoever, and is so generic and so bland that it comes completely out of nowhere, and just feels like something we've seen done to death so many times beforehand. And the fact that this movie was setting this mystery up so well, and for it to go down that pathway, it's like, come on, man, like, it's so stupid. It's such a terribly written movie. I expect better from Jodie Foster. She's made much better movies than this garbage. And, you know, I didn't think she'd reduce herself to this kind of a low, but idiots bought into it. It was a massive success at the box office, but yeah, needless to say, if you want the better airplane movie that came out in 2005, Red Eye is definitely the movie to go to. That's a much better mystery, a much better thriller aspect. That's a much better movie in general compared to this garbage right here. Flight Plan is a terrible, terrible movie. I hate this movie so much. Yeah, avoid it like the plague. So let's go ahead and get some good movies. Starting off with probably the most underrated movie that we have on this particular weekend show, and that is Roll Bounce. Pay no attention to the fact that the trailer for that actually has Rihanna's Pon de Replay in there. And coincidentally, funny enough, this movie actually has a lot of 80s and 90s slang in it, even though this takes place in 1978. But what's very interesting about this particular movie is the fact that, you know, when this movie first came out, they actually donated 10% of the movie's opening weekend to the victims of Hurricane Katrina. So that was kind of impressive that they were able to do that for this movie. It really has nothing to do with the hurricane in general, but I mean, they really put some money back into to fixing the damage from Katrina, which was extensive back in the day. But yeah, this is kind of the opposite of what happens with the movie like Venom, like we had the last time around. Like, this is a film that, you know, and it's a really good film too. It's a really damn good movie. Essentially, the plot of the movie is that I don't even think this is really that good of a plot. I'm reading right here from IMDb editors, but I'll try to read it as best as I can. 1970s roller skate jams fuels this coming-of-age comedy as X and his friends who rule the local rink are shocked when their home base goes out of business. Headed over to Sweetwater Roller Rink, they find the modest talents are at first no competition for the trick skaters and pretty girls who follow them every move. Not really a great idea to sum up with the plot in general, but it gives you kind of an idea of what the movie is about, and the cast is pretty damn spectacular. You got a lot of really good talent in there. You know, Bow Wow, Chi McBride, Mike Epps, Kalita Smith, Megan Good, Nick Cannon. They don't mention Journey Smollett in here. Brandon T. Jackson, Rick Gonzalez, Wayne Brady, Charlie Murphy. A lot of really good talent in this movie. Directed by Malcolm Lee, who, for the most part, has made a lot of really good movies that we've talked about beforehand. He made the Best Man movies, which were really good. Undercover Brother, which had a lot of promise to it. Didn't really completely work all the way through, but still worked enough to say it's okay. Welcome Home, Roscoe Jenkins is a fun movie. Soul Man is a really good movie, one of Bernie Mac's last movies. The worst thing I see that he's ever directed was Scary Movie 5, and even then, I feel like that was a movie he kind of took just because of the name recognition, but that's probably his worst movie overall. But everything else he's done, you know, Barbershop The Next Cut's really good, Girls Trip, Night School, Space Jam: A New Legacy. He's made a lot of good movies overall, and this is definitely one of his more underrated movies. It's a very good movie. You know, it has a lot of really cool moves inside of it. You know, the cast is very good. The comedy does work very well, and it does, you know, despite the fact that it does have a lot of things that are completely out of the decade in general, it does a very good job of handling everything in a way that's very well done, very well put together. It's a really good movie. It's a really great film that I do think is very underrated. Does not get the proper respect it deserves. It's definitely worth checking out. If you like Malcolm D. Lee's movies, you'll definitely really get a kick out of this film in general. I think this is a really good movie. Definitely deserves a lot more attention than it has right now. Definitely check it out. Robots. So let's go ahead and move on to another great movie that came out this weekend, David Cronenberg's A History of Violence. Believe it or not, this is actually based off of a DC property. Technically not officially DC, but it's from one of their imprints, Vertigo, who also gave us The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and also V for Vendetta, which was also, I believe, was one of their imprints as well. But this is based off of a 1997 graphic novel by the creator of Judge Dredd, John Wagner. And in this film, you have Tom Stahl, played by Viggo Mortensen, who's a humble family man and owner of a popular neighborhood restaurant, living a quiet but fulfilling existence in the Midwest. One night, Tom foils a crime at his place of business, and to his chagrin, is plastered all over the news for his heroics. And following this, mysterious people following the Stahl's every move, concerning Tom more than anybody else. As the situation is confronted, Moore looks out over when all these occurrences have stemmed from compromising his marriage to his wife, Maria Bello, family relationships, and the main character's former relations in the process, including Ed Harris, who's a scarred gangster, who alleges that Tom is actually a gangster named Joey Cusack, who has dealings with him in the Irish mob in Philadelphia many years ago. And it's a really good movie. It's one of those movies that's such a fascinating character study of Viggo Mortensen's character in this. Is he really who he says he is? You know, is Harris's character actually telling the truth about who Tom really is? We don't know at the beginning, but as the film progresses, we get invested in finding out the truth about what this character is about. Who really is telling the truth? This guy, or is Viggo Mortensen trying as best as he can to lay low and pretend like this is nothing? This is complete BS. It's also an incredibly very different take for David Cronenberg, who spends much of his career screwing around with his audience the way he does. You know, stuff like The Fly, Naked Lunch, Videodrome, Scanners, Crash, Existence. It's the first movie where he actually does handle a plot very seriously that doesn't involve some fucked up shit being thrown around its audience, because, as we all know, that's basically what his early stuff was like. As The Simpsons hilariously point out with Naked Lunch, you know, the kids coming out of the movie theater and going like, I can think of at least 2 things wrong with that title. And here, Cronenberg handles it very seriously, and it proves that he can handle a straightforward thriller, although it wasn't fully shown until Cronenberg did Eastern Promises a couple years later, what he could do with a more straightforward, serious storyline. I think that movie works a whole lot better in general, but this movie works because the casting is so good. Mortensen gives the proper performance to fit the character he's playing. We don't know if he's who he says he is, or if he's who's the gangster says he is. And Mortensen does a great job of not making it simple to figure out, and makes you, the viewer, guess throughout the course of the film. Ed Harris is very good too, giving this very sinister performance as the gangster who accuses Mortensen for not being who he says he is, and really is the highlight of the film, delivering a nicely handled mix of between James Spader's Raymond Reddington from The Blacklist and Anthony Hopkins' Hannibal Lecter from The Silence of the Lambs to make this sinisterly scary performance. But as we've seen before, if you've seen the Rock outtakes, Ed Harris doesn't really have to do much to scare the people around him in the movie. I mean, watch those outtakes and watch how mad he gets when he's trying to do this line with the phone and all that. Like, it's downright, that's more terrifying than anything in this particular movie in general. But Maria Bello, I think, also gives a really good performance in this, and William Hurt is good for the little bit he's in. Out of the performances in the film, he's really not in the film all that much, and yet out of all the actors, he's the one that gets the Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Not to say that Hurt was bad in the movie, but I thought Ed Harris was overall the best thing about the film. I think he should have gotten the nomination over Hurt, but to Hurt's credit, he's very good in the movie because it's William Hurt. The guy doesn't usually turn in a really bad performance. The action sequences are very good. The music by Howard Shore is nicely done. If there's one thing that I think kind of hurts the movie in general, it's another one of those movies that kind of ends on an unfinished note. Like, I can't stand that in movies when the movie just ends on an unfinished note for no reason whatsoever, except to tease a sequel that will never happen. I mean, even the graphic novel had an ending that made sense to it. Like, it wasn't like the ending was all that bad, but it just got on my nerves, and it's why I can't really say that this is one of the greatest movies of all time, like a lot of people say with this film in general. But what I can't say is that... Stupid pop-ups. What I can say about this movie, as I get back on track here, is that A History of Violence is a really intense, well-handled, well-written, well-acted, and well-directed action thriller with a lot of suspenseful twists and turns that makes it an interesting character study for its main character. It begs the question, how well do you really know somebody, and how do you know if they are who they say they are? It works because it does keep you on the edge of your seat because you want to know what happens next to these people, and shows what David Cronenberg can do with a more serious storyline in general. If the ending had been better, this probably would have been one of the greatest movies ever made, but as it is, a really good movie. I would highly recommend it. So we had a couple good movies there. Now let's get back to some crap. How about Jenny McCarthy in a new movie in 2005? Because clearly that means quality, right? Here's Dirty Love. This is the woman that wants you to not vaccinate your kids, ladies and gentlemen. In this movie, you have Jenny McCarthy as a struggling photographer who finds her model boyfriend in bed with another woman. Her life falls apart as she alternates between desire for revenge upon him, sexual promiscuity, and abandonment of all hope and love. And her best friends, played by Carmen Electra and Cam Heskin, try to set her up on dates. These include one of a freakish magician, another with a man who gives her ecstasy, and a fetish for fish, and she attempts to make her ex-boyfriend jealous by taking the director to a runway show, but he ends up vomiting on her breast in front of everyone. Ultimately, Rebecca realizes she should focus her energy on being with someone who truly loves her, and that turns out to be Eddie K. Thomas from American Pie. Her nerdy, effeminate but caring best male friend who has been supportive of her through the entire ordeal. Man, this is bad. This is really, really bad. How bad is it? It was the movie. It was, the Razzie Awards get a lot of criticism, but got it right on this one. This was their pick for the worst picture of the year, and really, I cannot blame them for that. I mean, in a year that you could have also had Deuce Bigelow, European Gigolo, which I think everybody knew was going to be bad, but this is just a terrible movie, man. This is just a lazy film, an unfunny mess of a film that has no likability to it whatsoever. This is a movie that should not be released in 2005 and expected to make a budget, is a profit back in any way, shape, or form. Like, even if you released this back when Jenny McCarthy was in her popularity in the 90s, this thing still would have crashed and burned badly at the box office. There's just, and in life in general, because this is a film that's so pathetic, so lazy, and just so desperately trying to titillate the audience with that quote there, It's like the Fairley Brothers and a Playboy Playmate got together, and it's from somebody named E! Film Critic. How do we know that that's even a real source, a real name in general? It probably is, but nothing about this movie says that this movie is worthy of being a funny movie, one you have to see, or B, something that anybody should have to go and see. And it doesn't help. Also help that these two, Jenny McCarthy and the director, were married when they were making the film, and then they divorced off the movie, and they divorced while the month this movie was released. So yeah, that had to be really, really awkward to have their relationship coming to an end as this movie was coming out. This is bad. This is a bad movie. This is a terrible, terrible movie. What more can I say, man? Avoid this one like the plague. Just a horrible movie. A waste of good talent that's in there. Eddie K. Thomas can be very funny. I've seen him in much better things than this. And, hell, even Carmen Electra I've seen in much better movies than this. I don't even know what her character is all about in this movie. It's like she's like a reverse Uncle Ruckus, where she thinks she's black but she's actually white. Like, it'd be good if it was actually funny or actually led to something, but it just doesn't. It really does not. So yeah, I think you can pretty much know what I'm going to say next. Avoid this one like the plague. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the last movie we have here, and that is Johnny Knoxville as Daltrey Calhoun. Yeah, certainly not the movie I was expecting when you look at the poster for it. It just looks like one of those comedies that you expect Johnny Knoxville to be in. But it's actually much more complicated than it is, and I can't really say it's a good movie, but it definitely feels a lot different than I was led on to believe. But you have Johnny Knoxville playing a seed-and-sod entrepreneur who's a local celebrity who makes a name for himself by selling locally produced turf to many of the nation's most exclusive golf courses, and his TV spots are well-liked by viewers across town. Daltrey's ex-girlfriend, played by Elizabeth Banks, arrives unannounced with their teenage daughter, a 14-year-old musical prodigy. She confides that her terminal illness had forced her to seek him out in hopes that he can care for the daughter after she's gone. And despite the early successes of Daltrey's business and the popularity of his commercials, his career has become unstable and he's forced to liquidate his assets in hope of salvaging what he can. Now faced with much adversity, Daltrey vows to make up for lost time by doing right in the eyes of her family and community by caring for his distant daughter, and all the while getting his business back on track. This millie did not feel like that. When I first heard about this movie, I did not think that we were going down this dramatic route. But man, I thought this was a movie about a guy who runs a milk company. That's what I literally thought of when I see the poster for this. Because I remember seeing the poster for this and thinking, this has got to have something to do with like milk, right? Like this guy works in milk and all that. I had no idea that this movie was going to go down this pathway. And I mean, I would give it credit for being something different for Johnny Knoxville to do, but unfortunately, the movie can't figure out what kind of a tone it wants to set. They set it up as this dark comedy, but with all these, it has more dramatic elements to it. And it's just like, what is this movie supposed to end up becoming in the end? Like, what am I supposed to take out of this film in general? Because after I watched the film, I was just coming out of it like, I still don't know what the hell this movie was supposed to do. Like, what was the whole point of this whole film in general? Like, what was I supposed to take from it? Because you got Johnny Knoxville in here, who's very funny, and I kind of want to see him do more serious stuff here in general. And I think that's what he was trying to do here. Elizabeth Banks can be very funny too. You know, you got David Koechner, he can be very funny. Juliette Lewis can be very good in many films, but unfortunately, the film just really doesn't feel like it has a good idea of what kind of a film it wants to be. What's the overall direction you want to take this film in general? And for that, I think the movie suffers big time. It takes what could be a very interesting film, and a very interesting film in terms of which ways you want to go with it, but it just can't bring itself to a point where I could say that it's something that could actually be something I'd recommend in general. I mean, it's not a bad movie, but it's definitely a very confusing film because it doesn't know what kind of a tone it wants to take. It feels like it wants to be played for more serious stuff rather than laughs, but the marketing for it doesn't do a good job of making it seem that way. Like the poster I'm looking at right here literally looks like something that you would see as like a comedy for like a movie produced by Judd Apatow. I'll show you what I mean. Let me give you a good glimpse of this. Yeah, that looks like the type of poster you would see for a raunchy comedy, you know, proudly spreading his seeds across America. And, yeah, it's not that at all. It's definitely not a movie that you would expect from someone like the Farrelly Brothers or Judd Apatow. No, it's a much more serious movie than that. And I think that really does hurt the movie in the long run. I think it really doesn't give the movie its chances to really give an idea of what they wanted to accomplish with it. Like, what am I supposed to take away from the film in general? Even after seeing the movie, I have no idea what I was supposed to take away from this movie in general, except the fact that, I mean, you got some ambitions to him, but unfortunately, you don't have a set idea of what I was supposed to take away from the film in general. So, yeah, I can't really say it's a good movie either, but I'll give it this. It was trying to do something different. I mean, it was at least trying to do something that was kind of outside of Johnny Knoxville's norm in general, but you know, it just doesn't have an identity to it, pretty much. It doesn't know what it wants to be, and for that, it kind of suffers from it. It says a lot when Johnny Knoxville's acting mentally challenged has more heart into it in 2005 than a movie like this in general. We'll get to The Ringer at the end of the year, because that's one of those big surprises that just comes out of nowhere. But as far as this movie goes, yeah, it's Not a great movie, unfortunately. So, a hard skip on Daltrey Calhoun, unfortunately. So, all with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies, and we'll wrap September up on the next episode with a couple of notable movies, including Firefly trying to pull off the same thing that Star Trek did over 25 years ago. Before at that point, with Serenity, good movie, but did it do this? Did it start the next big film franchise? Not really, but we'll talk about this movie because it is a good movie. Not a good movie is the film that everyone was hyping up as the next big thing. Paul Walker and Jessica Alba, in Into the Blue. Shia LaBeouf showing what he can do as an actor after his work on Even Stevens with The Greatest Game Ever Played by Disney. Philip Seymour Hoffman is Academy Award-winning role as Truman Capote in Capote. Julianne Moore in another movie. The prize winner of Defiance, Ohio. Miramax Mask. I think of the studio Miramax, but no, Mirror Mask, like Jim Carrey as the mask, but this is Mirror Mask. And Little Manhattan. So let's see, how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 movies to look at to end the month. So we'll take a look at all those movies all on the next episode. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, notification button if you want to get updates on when we post videos. We post every day, and you can check out all that stuff down there to see what else is on our channel. But with all that said, I'm off. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching, and until the next time I see you, take care.